As the heavy blast doors of the Galactic Council chamber slammed shut behind him with a resounding clang, Johnny Robertson knew in his bones that he had just signed up for a mission that would either bring the Cardassian worlds to ruin or leave humanity a dim memory. The grizzled mercenary stalked down the gleaming obsidian hallway, his heavy combat boots thudding against the polished stone. His scarred hands clutched a sleek hollow disk containing the ultimatum he had been tasked to deliver. An ultimatum that, if ignored, would unleash the full might of humanity's war machine upon the Cardassian Empire. Johnny's mind raced as he strode toward the hangar bay. The skeptical glances and hushed whispers of the council members still rang in his ears. They doubted the wisdom of sending a single human to confront the notoriously ruthless and warlike Cardassians. But they didn't know Johnny Robertson. Not like the Cardassians did. For decades, Johnny had been a thorn in the Empire's side, a ghost, a phantom that struck without warning, leaving shattered fleets and burning worlds in his wake. The Cardassians had come to fear the name Johnny Robertson, and now he would bring that fear to the very heart of their domain. As he neared the hangar bay, memories of past battles flickered through Johnny's mind. He saw the faces of friends and family lost to the Cardassians' relentless aggression. He felt the weight of their sacrifice upon his shoulders, driving him forward. This time it would be different. This time humanity would put an end to the Cardassian threat, once and for all. Johnny entered the hangar bay and strode toward his waiting ship, the Phantom. The sleek black vessel seemed to melt into the shadows, its angular lines and matte finish designed for stealth and infiltration. As he climbed into the cockpit and began the pre-flight sequence, Johnny allowed himself a small smile. The Cardassians had no idea what was coming, but they would learn, soon enough, the price of underestimating humanity's resolve. With a low hum, the Phantom lifted off the hangar floor and slipped into the void of space. Johnny set a course for the Cardassian homeworld, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and Johnny Robertson would not fail. Humanity's wrath would be unleashed, the Cardassian worlds would lie in ruin, or humanity itself would be extinguished forever. There was no middle ground, no room for half measures, only total victory or utter defeat. And Johnny Robertson would ensure that humanity emerged triumphant, no matter the cost. As the Phantom docked at the Cardassian homeworld's main spaceport, Johnny Robertson strode down the ramp with purpose. The Cardassian guards eyed the lone human with dismissive sneers, their hands resting on their weapons. Johnny approached them, his posture relaxed but his eyes alert. "I am here to see Emperor Wren," Johnny announced in flawless Cardassian, his accent perfect. "I come bearing a message from the Galactic Council." The guards exchanged surprised glances, caught off guard by the human's command of their language and his knowledge of their protocols. After a brief, tense moment, they nodded curtly and escorted Johnny towards the Imperial Palace. The palace loomed before them, a monolithic structure of polished black stone and gleaming metal, its spires piercing the sky like sharpened blades. Johnny followed his escorts through the labyrinthine halls, his boots echoing on the obsidian floors. As they entered the throne room, Johnny's gaze fell upon Emperor Wren. The Cardassian ruler was a massive specimen, his grey skin crisscrossed with scars, his yellow eyes glinting with malice. Wren sat upon a throne of twisted metal, flanked by his elite guards, their armor as black as the void of space. "A human," Wren rumbled, his voice dripping with contempt. "What brings you before me, creature?" Johnny met Wren's gaze unflinchingly. "I come with an ultimatum from the Galactic Council," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Your empire's aggression and atrocities will no longer be tolerated. You must cease all hostile actions and submit to the Council's authority, or face the consequences." Wren threw back his head and laughed, a harsh grating sound that reverberated through the chamber. "The Council sends a single human to threaten me," he sneered. "They are even weaker than I thought." Johnny's expression remained impassive. "The Council has evidence of your crimes," he said, producing a small hollow projector. "Recordings of the civilizations you've conquered, transmissions of your military's plans, testimonies from those who survived your brutality." As the hollow projector flared to life, filling the air with damning images and sounds. Ren's face contorted with rage. "Enough!" he roared, surging to his feet. "Seize this insolent creature!" The guards lunged forward, but Johnny was ready. His hand darted to his wrist, activating a hidden device. Explosions rocked the palace, sending debris crashing down around them. In the chaos, Johnny leapt towards Ren, engaging the Emperor in a vicious hand-to-hand battle. They traded blows with blinding speed, their skills evenly matched. Johnny ducked and weaved, his fists and feet finding their mark again and again. Ren fought back with brutal strength, his claws leaving bloody furrows in Johnny's flesh. As the palace crumbled around them, Johnny saw an opening. He lunged forward, tackling Ren to the ground. They grappled, rolling across the rubble-strewn floor, until Johnny managed to pin the Emperor beneath him, a knife pressed to his throat. "Yield," Johnny growled, his face inches from Ren's. "Surrender or face the full might of the human race." Ren glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. The Emperor opened his mouth to speak, his words drowned out by the sound of falling masonry and distant explosions. Ren glared up at Johnny with pure hatred in his yellow eyes. "Never," the Cardassian Emperor hissed, his voice thick with defiance. "The Cardassian Empire will never bow to your demands. We would rather die than submit to the whims of the Council and its human puppets." With a disgusted sneer, Ren gathered the last of his strength and spat directly into Johnny's face. The glob of saliva struck Johnny's cheek, but he didn't flinch. He'd endured far worse than the petty insults of a beaten tyrant. "Have it your way," Johnny growled. With a swift, brutal motion, he slammed the butt of his knife against Ren's temple, knocking the Emperor unconscious. Johnny dragged Ren's limp form through the rubble-strewn palace, his muscles straining with the effort. As he neared the Phantom, a group of armed Cardassians emerged from the shadows, their weapons trained on Johnny. "Hold it right there, human," their leader called out. Johnny tensed, ready for another fight. But then the leader stepped forward, lowering his weapon. "I am Talek, son of Ren," he said. "We are not here to fight you, but to join you." Johnny eyed Talek warily. "Join me? Why would you turn against your own father?" "Not all Cardassians support my father's tyrannical rule," Talek explained. "Many of us have long hoped for a chance to overthrow him and forge a new path for our people. A path of peace and cooperation, not conquest and oppression." Johnny considered Talek's words. The rebel leader seemed sincere, but Johnny had learned the hard way never to trust a Cardassian. "And what do you want in return for your help?" Johnny asked. "A seat at the table," Talek replied. "When the time comes to negotiate a new treaty with the Galactic Council, we want to ensure that the needs of the Cardassian people are met. A more lenient peace, one that doesn't strip us of our dignity and autonomy." Johnny hesitated, torn between his instinctive mistrust and the tantalizing prospect of an ally within the Cardassian ranks. "Prove your worth," he said at last. "Share what you know about your father's regime, his military secrets and weaknesses. Then perhaps we can work together to end his rule once and for all." Talek nodded, a grim smile spreading across his face. "I have information that will change the course of this war," he said. "But first, we must get you and my father to safety." Together, Johnny and Talek loaded Ren's unconscious body into the Phantom. As they lifted off, Talek revealed a wealth of intelligence on the Cardassians' military operations, from the locations of hidden bases to the weaknesses in their supply lines. Johnny's mind raced as he processed the information. With Talek's help, they could strike at the heart of the Cardassian war machine, crippling Ren's ability to fight back. "We need to let the Cardassian people know what's happened here," Johnny said. "Broadcast Ren's capture across the Empire, along with your demands for a new government. If we can incite a mass uprising against Ren's regime, we might just stand a chance of ending this war without further bloodshed." Talek nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. "I know just how to do it, but we'll need to act fast before my father's loyal forces realize what's happened." As the Phantom soared through the Cardassian skies, Johnny and Talek worked feverishly to put their plan into action. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, that they would face resistance from those still loyal to Wren's brutal regime. But with the rebels' intel and Johnny's skills, they dared to hope that victory was within reach, that the Cardassian Empire could be brought to its knees, not through conquest, but through the power of its own people rising up to demand change. Their first target was the Empire's main communication hub, a heavily guarded facility that controlled all transmissions across Cardassian space. With Talek's knowledge of the building's layout and security protocols, Johnny led a daring infiltration mission, fighting his way through waves of loyal Cardassian soldiers. The battle was intense, a blur of flashing blades and searing blaster fire. Johnny and Talek moved as one, their skills honed by years of combat experience. They ducked and weaved through the chaos, taking down their enemies with brutal efficiency. At last, they reached the central control room. With a few quick keystrokes, Johnny hacked into the Empire's broadcast system, his fingers flying across the unfamiliar Cardassian interface. "Pay attention, citizens of the Cardassian Empire," he began, his voice stern and unwavering. "Your Emperor has been captured, and his reign of terror is at an end. Even now, rebel forces are rising up across your worlds, demanding an end to the oppression and violence that has plagued our galaxy for so long." As Johnny spoke, Talek stepped forward, his face filling the screen. "I am Talek, son of Wren and leader of the Cardassian Rebellion. I call upon all those who have suffered under my father's rule to join us in our fight for freedom. Together, we can forge a new future for our people, one of peace, prosperity, and cooperation with the Galactic Council." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the Empire, Cardassian citizens took to the streets, their voices raised in a chorus of anger and hope. They tore down statues of Wren, stormed government buildings, and clashed with loyalist forces in a wave of rebellion that swept across the stars. Johnny and Talek watched the uprising unfold, their hearts racing with adrenaline and anticipation. They knew that the fight was far from over, that Wren's loyalists would not surrender without a bitter struggle. But with each passing moment, more and more Cardassians flocked to the rebel cause, driven by a desperate desire for change and a better tomorrow. Military leaders, once loyal to Wren, began to defect, pledging their support to Talek and the rebellion. As the tide turned in their favor, Johnny and Talek set out to secure key installations and strongholds across the Empire. They raced against time, knowing that every moment counted in their battle to topple Wren's regime once and for all. Zarek's face appeared on every viewscreen, every hollow projector across the Empire. His eyes gleamed with cold malice as he spoke, his voice dripping with venom. "Citizens of Cardassia," he began, his tone smooth and seductive, "do not be fooled by these so-called rebels and their human puppet master. They seek only to destabilize our great empire, to plunge us into chaos and anarchy for their own selfish gain." As Zarek's words echoed through the streets and halls of Cardassia, doubt and fear began to take root in the hearts of many. Cardassians who had once cheered for the rebellion now looked upon Johnny and Talek with suspicion and mistrust. Johnny slammed his fist against the console of the Phantom, his frustration boiling over. "That slimy bastard," he growled. "He's turning the people against us." Talek nodded grimly. "Zarek is a master manipulator. He knows how to play on the fears and doubts of the masses." But Johnny was not one to back down from a fight. He met Talek's gaze, his eyes burning with fierce determination. "Then we take the fight to him. We hit Zarek where he lives, show the people that he's nothing more than a power-hungry tyrant." Together, Johnny and Talek hatched a daring plan to infiltrate Zarek's stronghold and confront the general directly. They gathered a team of elite rebel operatives, each hand-picked for their skills and loyalty. As they approached the stronghold, Johnny couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The structure loomed before them, a towering fortress of black stone and gleaming metal, bristling with weapons and defenses. But there was no turning back now. With a silent nod to his team, Johnny led the charge, breaching the stronghold's outer defenses in a hail of blaster fire and explosions. Inside, they were met with fierce resistance from Zarek's loyalist forces. Cardassian soldiers poured out from every corridor and doorway, their weapons spitting deadly bolts of energy. Johnny and his team fought their way through the chaos, their skills and determination pushed to the limit. They ducked and weaved through the crossfire, taking down their enemies with brutal efficiency. As they pushed deeper into the stronghold, Johnny stumbled upon a shocking discovery. In a hidden chamber, he found evidence of Zarek's true intentions, detailed plans for a military coup, a takeover of the Cardassian Empire that would eliminate Zarek's rivals and consolidate his power. Johnny's blood ran cold as he realized the full extent of Zarek's ambitions. The general was not content with merely defeating the rebellion. He sought to rule the entire galaxy, to bend every world to his will. With renewed urgency, Johnny and his team fought their way to the heart of the stronghold, where Zarek awaited them. The general stood tall and proud, his black armor gleaming in the dim light, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "So," he sneered, "the great Johnny Robertson. I must admit I'm impressed that you made it this far, but you're too late. My plan is already in motion, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Johnny said nothing. He simply charged forward, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. Zarek met him head-on, and the two warriors clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand battle that shook the very foundations of the stronghold. They traded blows with blinding speed and savage strength, neither willing to yield an inch. Johnny could feel his muscles burning, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but he refused to back down. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Johnny landed a crushing blow to Zarek's jaw, sending the general staggering back. Zarek collapsed to the ground, his eyes glazed, his breath coming in shallow rasps. Johnny stood over him, his chest heaving, his fist still clenched. "It's over, Zarek," he growled. "Your plan has failed." But Zarek only laughed, a wet, gurgling sound that sent chills down Johnny's spine. "You think this is over?" he choked out, his eyes glinting with malice. "You know nothing, human. I have sleeper agents planted throughout the Galactic Council, ready to strike at my command. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Johnny's blood turned to ice in his veins. He looked to Talek and saw his own shock and horror mirrored in the rebel leader's eyes. They had defeated Zarek, but his final revelation had opened up a terrifying new front in the war for Cardassia's future. As they stood over Zarek's broken body, Johnny and Talek both knew that their fight was only just beginning. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But they had come too far to turn back now. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they would not rest until peace and justice had been restored, no matter the cost. Johnny's blood ran cold as the full implications of Zarek's revelation sank in. The Cardassian general's network of sleeper agents, hidden within the very heart of the Galactic Council, posed an existential threat to the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Without hesitation, Johnny opened a secure channel to the Council. "This is Johnny Robertson," he said, his voice urgent and grim. "We have a situation. General Zarek has planted sleeper agents throughout the Council. They're poised to strike at any moment." The Council chamber erupted into chaos, a cacophony of shouts and gasps echoing through the comlink. "Are you certain?" one of the councillors demanded, her voice tight with fear. "Positive," Johnny replied. "Zarek confessed everything before he died. We need to act now before it's too late." The council fell silent for a moment, the weight of Johnny's words settling like a leaden shroud. Then, with a grim determination, they sprang into action. "We'll dispatch our best ships and troops to support you," the head councillor declared. "Together, we'll root out these traitors and secure the galaxy once and for all." As the council fleet mobilized, Johnny turned his attention to the Cardassian Empire itself. With Wren in custody and Zarek dead, the loyalist forces were in disarray. Talek seized the opportunity, rallying the rebels and establishing a provisional government to fill the power vacuum. "We'll need allies," Talek said, his brow furrowed with concentration as he pored over star maps and intelligence reports. "The Galactic Council's support is a start, but we'll need the backing of other civilizations if we hope to stabilize the Empire." Johnny nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. We'll reach out to the Ferengi, the Vulcans, anyone who has a stake in maintaining peace in the quadrant. With their help, we can... His words were cut short by a blaring alarm, the Phantom sensors screaming a warning. "Incoming hostiles!" Johnny shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "Cardassian warships, closing fast!" The Galactic Council fleet had arrived, but so had the remnants of Wren's loyalist forces. The two armadas clashed in a titanic battle, the void of space lit by the flash of 1,000 weapons. Johnny led the charge, the Phantom darting and weaving through the chaos, its weapons spitting fire. But even as they fought, Johnny knew that this was only the beginning. Zarek's sleeper agents were still out there, hidden among the stars, waiting for their moment to strike. They would need to be rooted out one by one if the galaxy was ever to know true peace. A console exploded behind him, showering the Phantom's cockpit with sparks. Johnny cursed, fighting to keep the ship under control as warning lights flashed and alarms blared. They were taking heavy fire, the Cardassian ships concentrating their attacks on the Phantom with ruthless precision. "We can't take much more of this," Johnny shouted over the din of battle. "We need to—" His words died in his throat as a massive explosion rocked the Phantom, sending it careening out of control. A Cardassian warship loomed before them, its weapons glowing with deadly intent. Johnny braced himself for the end. But the end didn't come. Instead, a sleek silver ship dropped out of warp directly between the Phantom and the Cardassian vessel, its shields absorbing the brunt of the attack. Johnny's heart leapt as he recognized the markings on the ship's hull. Vulcan. "Looks like our allies have arrived," he said with a fierce grin. Talek nodded, hope kindling in his eyes as more Vulcan ships dropped out of warp, engaging the Cardassian forces with calm, ruthless efficiency. With the battle raging around them, Johnny and Talek fought their way to the heart of the Cardassian fleet, the Phantom bobbing and weaving through the chaos. They had almost reached the flagship when a new threat emerged, a small, agile fighter, painted a deep, menacing black. Johnny's blood ran cold as he recognized the ship. It was Wren's personal fighter, the same one the Emperor had used to escape captivity, and at the controls, his face twisted with rage and hatred, was Wren himself. "You!" Johnny growled, his grip tightening on the Phantom's controls. "I should have known you'd find a way to slither out of your cell." Wren's laughter crackled over the comm, harsh and mocking. "Did you really think you could hold me, human? I am the Emperor of Cardassia, the master of the stars themselves." With a roar of engines, Wren's fighter surged forward, weapons blazing. Johnny threw the Phantom into a desperate, evasive maneuver, the two ships locked in a deadly dance above the swirling chaos of the battle below. They wove through the wreckage of shattered ships, exchanging fire with blinding speed. Wren was a skilled pilot, his movements precise and deadly. But Johnny was better. He'd spent his life honing his skills in the cockpit, pushing himself to the very limits of human endurance. With a final desperate twist, Johnny brought the Phantom around behind Wren's fighter, his weapons locked on target, but before he could fire, a new alarm sounded, drawing his attention to the planet below. The Cardassian colony was in chaos, fires raging across its surface as Zarek's sleeper agents emerged from hiding, sowing destruction and terror. Civilians ran through the streets, screaming in panic as buildings collapsed and explosions rocked the ground. Johnny hesitated, torn between his desire to end Wren's threat once and for all and his duty to protect the innocent. But in that moment, he knew what he had to do. With a muttered curse, he broke off his pursuit of Wren's fighter, angling the Phantom towards the planet's surface. "What are you doing?" Talek demanded, his eyes wide with disbelief. "We have Wren in our sights." "The colony is under attack," Johnny said, his voice grim. "Zarek's sleeper agents are tearing it apart. We have to help them." Talek opened his mouth to argue, but something in Johnny's eyes made him pause. He saw the same fierce determination, the same unyielding resolve that had carried them this far. With a curt nod, he strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. "Let's go save some lives." As the Phantom plunged into the atmosphere, Johnny's thoughts raced. Ren was still out there, still a threat. But in that moment, the lives of the innocent took precedence. He would deal with the Emperor soon enough. For now, he had a colony to save. As the Phantom touched down on the war-torn surface of the Cardassian colony world, Johnny leaped from the cockpit, his boots kicking up clouds of dust as he hit the ground running. All around him, the once peaceful settlement had been transformed into a hellscape of shattered buildings and burning rubble, the air thick with the acrid stench of smoke and death. Zarak's sleeper agents swarmed through the ruins like lethal ghosts, their advanced weaponry spitting bolts of searing energy as they clashed with the colony's beleaguered defenders. The Cardassian loyalists fought with the desperate fury of cornered animals, but they were outmatched and outgunned, their ranks thinning with each passing moment. Johnny wasted no time. Rallying a ragtag group of local Cardassians and rebel sympathizers, he quickly organized a makeshift resistance force, his years of combat experience guiding their every move. Together, they pushed back against the sleeper agents, fighting street by street, building by building, in a desperate bid to evacuate civilians and protect vital infrastructure. As they battled through the chaos, Johnny's mind raced, searching for a way to turn the tide. He knew that every second counted, that every moment they delayed was another chance for the sleeper agents to tighten their grip on the colony. Suddenly his comm crackled to life, Talik's voice cutting through the static. "Johnny, we need your help. Ren has launched an attack on our headquarters. We're outnumbered and outgunned. If we fall, the rebellion falls with us." Johnny cursed under his breath, his heart torn between his duty to the civilians and his loyalty to his fellow rebels. He knew that if Ren succeeded in crushing the rebel leadership, all their sacrifices, all their struggles, would be for nothing. But he also knew that he couldn't abandon the colony, couldn't leave innocent lives to be snuffed out by Zarak's ruthless agents. There had to be another way, a way to save both the civilians and the rebellion. And then it hit him, a desperate gambit, a last-ditch effort to end the sleeper agent's threat once and for all. With a grim determination, Johnny opened a channel to the Galactic Council fleet hovering in orbit above the planet. "This is Johnny Robertson," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I need your help. The sleeper agents have a hidden base beneath the colony's surface. If we can take it out, we can end this fight before it consumes the entire planet." There was a moment of hesitation, a crackle of uncertainty over the comm. "Johnny, we can't risk civilian casualties. The collateral damage would be too high." But Johnny wasn't about to back down. Drawing on every ounce of his knowledge of Cardassian culture, every shred of his hard-earned reputation as a hero of the rebellion, he made his case. "Listen to me," he said, his voice low and intense. "These people are suffering, dying because of Zarak's twisted ambitions. If we don't act now, if we don't strike at the heart of his operation, their blood will be on our hands. We have to do this, for the sake of the Cardassian people, for the sake of the entire galaxy." There was a long, tense silence, and then finally a response. "All right, Johnny, you've got your strike, but you'll need to mark the target for us. We can't risk hitting the wrong location." Johnny nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Leave that to me." Gathering a small team of his most trusted rebels, Johnny set out on a daring mission to infiltrate the sleeper agent's hidden base. They fought their way through heavily guarded corridors, their weapons blazing as they cut down scores of brainwashed soldiers. They hacked through complex security systems, their skills put to the ultimate test as they delved deeper and deeper into the enemy's stronghold. And then, at last, they reached the heart of the operation, a vast shadowy chamber filled with banks of humming machinery and flickering screens. As they planted the targeting beacons that would guide the Council's strike, Johnny's eyes widened in horror at the sight before him. Rows upon rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each one containing the motionless form of a different alien species. Zarak's sleeper agents, Johnny realized with a sickening lurch, were not just Cardassians, but members of countless races from across the galaxy, all of them brainwashed and conditioned to serve as mindless puppets in the General's twisted game. Johnny's hand shook with barely contained rage as he finished planting the final beacon. He had seen the depths of Zarek's depravity, the true scope of his ambitions, and he knew, with a certainty that burned like a supernova in his chest, that he would not rest until the galaxy was free from the General's iron grip. Taustumnia. With Ren defeated and captured at last, Johnny raced across the war-torn battlefield towards Talek and Zarek's ongoing battle. He leapt over twisted heaps of smoking rubble, dodging stray blaster bolts that whizzed past his head. Talek and Zarek were locked in a vicious hand-to-hand duel, their blades flashing in the dim light. Talek's face was a mask of grim determination, while Zarek's features were twisted with rage and desperation. Johnny charged into the fray, his own weapon drawn. He fell upon Zarek from behind, his blade slicing through the Cardassian general's armor. Zarek howled in pain and fury, whirling to face this new threat. Together, Johnny and Talek pressed their advantage, raining down blows on Zarek from both sides. The general fought back with the strength of a cornered beast, his movements growing increasingly erratic and desperate. "It's over, Zarek," Johnny shouted over the clash of blades. "Your forces are in ruins, your schemes exposed. Surrender now and face justice." But Zarek only laughed, a harsh grating sound that sent chills down Johnny's spine. "You think you've won, human?" he snarled. "You know nothing of the depths of my cunning, the extent of my plans." With a sudden, violent motion, Zarek reached for a device on his belt. Before Johnny or Talek could react, he pressed a button, and a sickly green mist began to pour from hidden vents across the battlefield. Johnny's eyes widened in horror as he recognized the telltale signs of a chemical weapon. He saw rebel soldiers beginning to choke and convulse, their skin blistering as the toxic mist enveloped them. Talek hesitated for a split second, torn between his desire to aid Johnny and his duty to his troops. But he saw the resolve in Johnny's eyes, the unwavering determination that had carried them this far. With a curt nod, Talek turned and began shouting orders, organizing a hasty retreat. Johnny meanwhile lunged at Zarek with renewed fury. He could feel the toxic mist burning his lungs, his vision beginning to blur at the edges. But he pushed through the pain, knowing that every second counted. Zarek fought back with the strength of madness, his attacks wild and unpredictable. His blade found its mark again and again, leaving Johnny bleeding from a dozen wounds. But Johnny would not yield. With a final desperate surge of strength, he batted aside Zarek's blade and charged forward, tackling the general to the ground. They grappled in the toxic mist, their blood mingling on the scorched earth. Through the haze of pain and exhaustion, Johnny spotted the chemical weapons control center, a squat bunker bristling with antennae and blinking lights. He knew that if he could just reach it, he could end this nightmare once and for all. With a grunt of effort, Johnny hauled himself to his feet, leaving Zarek's unconscious form behind. He staggered towards the bunker, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his vision swimming with each step. As he neared the entrance, a group of Zarek's elite guards emerged from the shadows, their weapons trained on Johnny's battered form. Johnny didn't hesitate. With a roar of defiance, he charged forward, his blade flashing in a whirlwind of desperate strikes. He fought like a man possessed, ignoring the searing pain of blaster bolts and the sting of vibroblades. One by one the guards fell before him, until at last he stood alone before the bunker's entrance. Johnny stumbled inside, his eyes watering from the concentration of toxic mist. He scanned the banks of controls and displays, his mind racing as he sought a way to disable the weapon. But as he worked, a terrible realization dawned on him. The only way to stop the chemical attack was to overload the bunker's power core, triggering a massive explosion that would incinerate everything within a mile radius. Johnny hesitated, his hand hovering over the control panel. He thought of Talek and the rebels, of the countless lives that hung in the balance. He thought of all the sacrifices that had been made, all the friends and comrades who had given their lives for the cause. In that moment, Johnny knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, he entered the final sequence, setting the power core to overload. Warning klaxons blared, emergency lights flashing red. Johnny closed his eyes, a strange sense of peace settling over him. He thought of all the battles he had fought, all the worlds he had seen. He thought of the future he had dreamed of, a galaxy free from the tyranny and oppression of men like Ren and Zarek. "Talek, my friend," he whispered sadly, "I wish I could have seen it through to the end with you." Then, with a final defiant roar, Johnny slammed his fist down on the activation button. The power core erupted in a blinding flash of light, an explosion that seemed to rend the very fabric of space and time. The blast engulfed the bunker, the battlefield, the surrounding forests and mountains. Everything within miles was instantly incinerated, reduced to ash and molten slag. Talek and the rebel forces, watching from a safe distance, stared in awe and horror as the mushroom cloud bloomed on the horizon. They saw the Cardassian army, once so formidable and vast, consumed in the blink of an eye. And when the smoke cleared, when the echoes of the blast had faded to silence, they found no trace of Johnny Robertson or General Zarek. Only a scorched crater remained, a testament to the sacrifices that had been made, the price that had been paid for freedom. Talek bowed his head, his heart heavy with the weight of his friend's loss. "Johnny," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I swear it." With a heavy sigh, Talek turned to his troops, his eyes hardening with resolve. "Come," he said, his voice ringing with authority. "We have a galaxy to rebuild, a future to forge. Let us honor the memory of Johnny Robertson and all those who fell by creating a world worthy of their sacrifice." And so, with heavy hearts and unbreakable spirit, Talek led his forces onward, into an uncertain future, armed only with the knowledge that they fought for a just and noble cause. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, fraught with untold challenges and dangers. But they would face it as Johnny had taught them, with courage, with determination, with an unwavering commitment to the ideals of freedom and justice. The legend of Johnny Robertson would endure, whispered around campfires and enshrined in the annals of galactic history. The selfless hero who had given his life so that others might live free. And though the galaxy would never be the same, though scars of the Great Rebellion would linger for generations to come, one thing was certain. The dream that Johnny had fought for, the vision he had died to protect, it would never be forgotten. In the weeks that followed the cataclysmic battle on the remote planet, the rebel forces and their allies worked tirelessly to rebuild the shattered worlds left in the wake of the Cardassian Empire's brutal reign. Talek, thrust into the role of leader, poured his heart and soul into the creation of a new government, one built upon the ideals that Johnny had fought and died for. But even as the fledgling democracy began to take shape, whispers of a new threat began to circulate through the rebel ranks. A shadowy group of Cardassian loyalists, led by a mysterious figure known only as the Shadow, emerged from the ashes of the Empire, spreading rumors that Ren and Zarek had been mere puppets, dancing to the tune of a far greater power. Talek, his face lined with worry, gathered his most trusted advisors in a dimly lit room, the weight of Johnny's absence heavy on his shoulders. "If what they say is true," he said, his voice low and urgent, "then our fight is far from over. We must root out this hidden cabal and expose their machinations, or risk seeing all that we fought for crumble to dust." And so Talek began to assemble a team of the galaxy's most skilled operatives, each hand-picked for their unique abilities and unwavering loyalty to the cause. There was Kira, the Bajoran spy with a gift for infiltration; Raxon, the Klingon warrior, whose battle prowess was matched only by his fierce devotion; and Zora, the brilliant Vulcan strategist with a mind like a steel trap. Together, they delved deep into the murky underbelly of the galaxy, following threads of corruption and deceit that led them to the very heart of the Galactic Council itself. With each new discovery, the scope of the conspiracy grew ever larger, implicating high-ranking officials and trusted allies alike. But it was a chance discovery by Kira that sent shockwaves through the team. Hidden deep within a labyrinth of encrypted files, she found a grainy image of a man, his face battered and bruised, but unmistakably familiar. Johnny, alive but broken, held captive by the very cabal they sought to destroy. Talik's heart raced as he stared at the image, a mix of hope and dread coursing through his veins. If Johnny was alive, then there was a chance, however slim, that they could rescue him and turn the tide of the war once and for all. But if the cabal had managed to break him, to twist his mind and loyalty as they had done with so many others. Talik pushed the thought aside, his jaw clenched with resolve. He would not fail his friend, not again. With renewed purpose, he gathered his team and set out on a mission fraught with peril, determined to find Johnny and bring the cabal to its knees. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.